The band is back together, Kyle, CJ, and myself. We spent the entire World Series together, late nights. Uh,
Late
late.
nights.
Yeah, that
Late.
one was really late. CJ, we want an outside opinion. You're the person coming in. We've been working on the crossword. We're stumped. We want the outside
Ooh.
observer on the Jays and their potential offseason moves, starting with Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, the finisher. I kind of like this role a little bit. I think the most important thing where you have to start with them is payroll and what is the reality of where they could go, right? They went over the luxury tax this past year. And so, because of that, penalties for them signing a qualifying offer free agent, gets a little kind of in the weeds a little bit. It's significant. There are 7 teams that are in this category. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, if they were to sign somebody like Kyle Tucker, and he's a guy that you would bypass this, but it is significant. It's your 2nd round pick, it's your 5th round pick, and it's $1 million of your international bonus pool. Now you can get some of that money back. You can trade international signing money, but anybody that you sign of those qualifying offer guys that are out there, it is a significant penalty that comes the other way. So that's part of this because of where the Jays spent last year. That's the position they're in this year. The next part of that is, okay, now how far are they willing to go? They went over the first luxury tax, but because they did last year, the penalties increase. So it's now 30% for every dollar you spend over 244 million, and then it'll be even higher if they want to hit that second luxury tax threshold. There are 4 of them in total. So we can read reports out there, we can look at numbers that are out there. They're never 100% accurate, but I think that's the one part that you kind of have to guess on a little bit because they're not that far away from a luxury tax standpoint, and that might even be over that first number already. And so the question becomes, how far are they willing to go? Yeah, there's some big needs out there, and there's some really big players that are going to potentially fit this team in a big way. You mentioned Kyle Tucker, and Bo Bichette won't cost you that qualifying offer penalty. It makes it maybe a little bit easier to go back to him. But I do think that's kind of out there a little bit as far as what you have to give up in order to sign one of these big time players.
CJ, you talk about going to the next level of luxury taxes and whatnot, but Dan and I have harped on this a lot and reminded people constantly this is one of the richest teams in baseball, and you cannot get closer to winning a World Series than they did last year. Should they just be saying to hell with all of that and just go all in from whatever point they can? Because they made a lot of extra revenue last year. And if they want that final 2 outs in the World Series or whatnot, they should spend the money, should they not?
They should, and I'm with you on that 100%. We talked about it just as far as how many people were actually at the game and everything that was going on around the World Series and what the revenue looked like just from last year alone, but already a really rich company that owns this team to begin with. So I'm with you on that part of it. Absolutely. I think it's a matter of what are they really going to do. We'll always push our teams to spend more money. Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of control. So yes, they should be thinking about at least that second tier because of how close they got, because of how difficult it is to get there year in and year out, and the group that they have right now, right? You don't give Vladdy all of that money in that huge contract to not try to take full advantage of his window, right? His best years are going to be those first few years of that contract. So I'm with you on that part of it. I just hope that they will do it. I think if fans around baseball are always pushing for others to kind of join the Dodgers and get uncomfortable and join the Mets and get a little bit uncomfortable with how much you spend. So they shouldn't. I'm with you on it. Yes, they shouldn't. I just know that what we see pretty consistently from most teams is that they try to operate within certain parameters, but public pressure, maybe sometimes it'll work.
The comparison that the Jays can make with this coming year's team compared to last year's team is when they won back-to-back World Series, 92, 93. They just didn't go into 93 with the same lineup. They made big changes.
They did, and they don't have to do it this time around, right? You mentioned when you sit here and look at this lineup, there is not necessarily big pieces that are missing. With that being said, on the offensive side, there is absolutely help to be had, and I think the way you can do it, the position that they're in, that's just a little bit envious, I think, of some teams around the game, is they have this flexibility on which way they want to go because of the flexibility they have with guys like Ernie Clement and with Addison Barger, right, and positions that they can play. And so whether it's, hey, we want to go get Kyle Tucker, the best right fielder that is out there, that will bring Addison Barger into the infield. If for some reason they say, what about Bo? We put him at second, Ernie Clement over at third. That pushes Addison Barger into the outfield, right? So you have that. Yes, you don't need necessarily any kind of major overhaul offensively, but you also have this flexibility that really works in your favor. We see teams that get stuck on certain players that are locked into one position that then prevents them from going out and getting one of the better free agents that's available or one that's within their reach because they just can't make it work on their roster. And so in the case of the Toronto Blue Jays, they got a couple of different ways that they can go. Like I said, you could bring Bo back, maybe have him play second. Kyle Tucker and right makes a lot of sense. Alex Bregman potentially over at third base, right? That's another really big bat and a guy that has always been on really highly competitive teams that I think would also fit. So you're talking about potentially second base, third base, right field. You're not going to do all those, but you have the freedom to do one of those and have the right pieces to be able to move around and still have a really competitive lineup.
We've talked before about how the Blue Jays, they're kind of a destination for free agents now because of the talk of how well they treat players and their families and whatnot. But one thing over the years they've never been able to do is land that big name Japanese guy. And this year there is an arm on the mound, Tatsuya Imai. What are the chances their fate in that department changes and he ends up in Toronto?
I think he has a chance. Well, there's a couple of guys, right? You have a couple of Japanese pitchers. You also have a couple of Japanese corner infielders. So I don't know where they are in the two third basemen that are out there as well. They could be potentially in the market. They all would fit, right? The four main guys that are scheduled to come over from Japan would all fit the Toronto Blue Jays. It's always interesting to me that they have struggled in that because it seems like, it's such a good international city that it seems like it would be a really easy fit. I spent a couple of years over there, and knowing what I see over there and the kind of the cities and the way the game is played, I always felt like Toronto would be a much easier transition, I think, for some of the Japanese guys compared to certain cities. Now, LA is a good spot, and they've done a really good job building the culture there with the Dodgers for Japanese players and have had this unbelievable run of success. But I don't know if there's anything that I would look at and say, here's where the Blue Jays will struggle because of something that they bring to the table and why they haven't been able to get that big Japanese free agent. I think it helps that there's four guys out there this year, and that means that there's just, there's no way one team is going to be locked in and taking the bulk of the really good Japanese players that are coming over, right? We saw Shohei, we saw Yamamoto, and then Sasaki just kind of picked the Dodgers, right? He wasn't very expensive. So their odds should be much more in their favor, whether it's the top right-handed arm, the secondary arm, or either one of those corner infielders, if they like those guys. And, sometimes we'll read reports. Not everybody agrees team-wise on what they think of those players. But I don't see why there should be anything blocking them. You could see it for other cities, right? You could see maybe some smaller cities in the Midwest where that might be an adjustment for a Japanese player, might not be nearly as comfortable. There could be some of the teams in the South that play outside like we do here in Atlanta, right? There's something about, if you go look at a lot of the Japanese ballparks, the bulk of them are indoors. Right. So again, that should be a draw coming to a place like Toronto for a Japanese guy. So I don't think they have necessarily anything that they have to do that they have to change. I do think they're pretty well positioned because of the guys that are available this year.
The one thing the Jays did not have during the run last year, and no one will disagree with this, is a big booming bat to come off the bench. And there is one that is being floated about. Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. I mean, he's not coming off the bench, right? He's going to be in your lineup every single day.
There's so many
But I
spots,
get what
I
you're
don't
saying.
know where you put him. Can you have to DH him?
You don't want him in the field. Unfortunately for it has not worked out for him in the past. If you remember a couple of years ago, the Red Sox thought they could put him over at first base, and he is a team guy first. He's one of the best guys you'll ever run across in this game. He is the guy you want to hang out with. He's the guy you want in your clubhouse, all of those things. But the one thing you don't want him doing is putting a glove on. And he really struggled when he was over at first base, and it's not as easy as people make it, might assume that it is. But he'll do whatever it takes, right? It goes to the kind of unselfishness of Kyle Schwarber. But if you're going to put the money in, he's going to DH. I think it's a little bit problematic with George Springer. I know that contract will clear, but as far as next year goes, it does make it a little bit crowded. Can you make it work? Can you make it happen? You can find a way with that kind of bat. Again, you make concessions for certain types of players. He is one of those. I do think it would be a little bit crowded for them, and would they be better off going Kyle Tucker, going Alex Bregman, or even having Bo come back and play second base?
CJ, speculation this time of year is literally my favorite thing. You just mentioned that what a clubhouse guy Schwarber is. Well, the Jays just said goodbye to a clubhouse guy, Max Scherzer. He had a great effect down towards the tail end of the season through the World Series. He was able to turn back the clock. What if they replace him with an aging Justin Verlander?
That's interesting. I don't know if they're the same guy, quite honestly. Even though they're kind of paired together in the time that they spent together in Detroit and kind of these parallel careers. And if they decide to both retire at the same time, they're very likely going to go in the Hall of Fame the same year. It sounds like Scherzer's not going to be that guy in Verlander. They both want to continue playing. I thought it would have been interesting if they both shut it down this year and the three of them, including Clayton Kershaw, would all go in the same time. Would be kind of neat to see, but they want to keep playing. And of course, you go as long as you possibly can. I don't know enough about Justin Verlander to say with confidence that he would be the same kind of guy that Max Scherzer is now. Max Scherzer wears that emotion on the outside, right? So we see that, and so you got to be careful sometimes, I think, on how you read players. I will say that Hunter Brown, who really got his career turned around with the Houston Astros, did talk about the effect that Justin Verlander had on his career and some of the conversations that they had. Hunter Brown is from the Detroit area. He's from Michigan, and he tried to basically pattern himself after Justin Verlander. Same mechanics. They looked the same. That was a big topic of conversation when he got there and they played together, and he did have a lot of positive things to say. I don't know if Verlander is that same guy. Now, I will say this. Teams go deeper than ever on players when they bring them in, and coaches, anybody that they bring into their culture, to make sure that they're a fit. And if they believe he fits, then absolutely they would bring him in.
Where does Don Mattingly go? Does he want to be a manager? Is he done in baseball?
I think a lot of people thought Philadelphia, potentially. Rob Thompson, of course, they worked together when they were with the New York Yankees. Actually, when I was there in 2004, both of those guys were on that coaching staff. And then his son, Preston, is in the front office with the Philadelphia Phillies. So, he talked a little bit about family. I wondered about that part. It seemed like almost too easy of a fit. Right, when everything kind of lines up. Hey, one of your former coaches is the manager in Philly. Your son is in the front office. Of course, you're going to end up there. And then, of course, things usually don't end up the way we think they are going to. So that seems to me that would be the easiest spot. I mean, you've seen what happened, right? 8 of the 9 positions that have gotten filled as far as the open managerial positions, a lot of them have gotten very young, some very inexperienced as well. That is kind of the trend in the game. It's not a knock on Don Mattingly. It's just kind of looking at what teams are looking for. And would he really want to go manage the Colorado Rockies right now? I would guess no. Even if he was offered the position, the state that they're in right now. So my guess would be to help fill out a staff. It seems like an ideal bench coach in Philadelphia if he wants the job.
I always see career guys like Mattingly. It happens a lot in hockey. A guy retires, immediately gets into coaching, and I just think, man, that guy really doesn't want to go home.
I joke about that too, man. Right, with certain guys, like, "Well, you really hate your family," but no, I mean, it could be, and I would never say that about Don Mattingly. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
It could be about the passion to play, and quite honestly, the support you get. I joke about it all the time. Right, I was fortunate to play for 19 years all around the world and had kind of this, whatever haphazard career. But part of it was the consistent travel. And I joke about when I got home with guys we talk about in retirement all the time. That first March, that first spring training, when you're always gone and you're home and your wife's kind of looking at you sideways, like, "What are you doing here?" Like, she's gotten used to it. Like,
Yeah.
if you stay together throughout your career, like, she likes that. My wife was like, "This is the time that I can do whatever I want in the house, and I don't get questioned. I can move the furniture around. I can go where I want and kind of do my thing." And there is an adjustment period that can be really difficult for athletes post career. And so, if you have the right family dynamic where it works, they actually still like you involved in the game. Some guys are better off continuing to do it. I think Don Mattingly's family obviously loves baseball.
Big surprise deal when the Rangers acquired Brandon Nimmo from the Mets for Marcus Semien. Is that reflective of a changing priority in Major League Baseball towards run prevention and whatnot? I'm not even looking at the Mets side because they're just always such a mess with that. But Texas is clearly shifting their priority.
I think so. It's very interesting to see that trade go down, right? For a couple of reasons. You mentioned, first of all, the defense. And in general, the Mets have struggled. And so, was there sometimes an overreaction, right? When you see something happening in such a direction that you feel like you have to stop it, maybe you take some chances. Now, you guys are familiar with Marcus Semien, his time in Toronto. I covered him in Texas. Tremendous human being, tremendous teammate, really good player. The offense is starting to slip a little bit, but the defense is still there. And so the Mets saw an opportunity to get a little bit better defensively. And like you said, I think game wise, yes, run prevention based on how your team is built is really important. If you have a bunch of strikeout, swing and miss starting pitchers, it's not to say that you can't have good defense, but it doesn't have to necessarily be your focus. If you got some really good ground ball pitchers like Clay Holmes, as an example, who's in that rotation with the New York Mets, you better have your defense buttoned up, or those guys are going to get exposed and you're not going to get the true value of those pitchers. So a lot of times it can be team dependent. Not that anybody wants to be bad at defense, but there are certain teams that need to be better in their infield defense based on how their pitching staffs are built. In the case of Nimmo, I'm fascinated by it because he had a no trade clause. And this is a guy, really good guy. Everybody likes him. He came from Wyoming where he didn't have high school baseball, ends up being a first round pick, signs his extension, was talking about Mets wanting to maybe have his number hanging in the rafters one day, and he approved this trade. And when somebody approves this trade, when you hear that kind of background, you see the couple of years leading up to it, the light bulb kind of goes off like, hey, what's going on? Why didn't he not want to be there anymore. So there'll be speculation because it's New York and it's kind of how it goes. Yes, his defense slid a little bit. He's still a really tough at bat. I think he's a good player. Walk rate dropped for him, but still about league average. He's just been so good. I think the Rangers probably seeing an opportunity, letting Garcia go. They needed some more help in the outfield. He's a highly respected guy, and maybe it's just going to be a better fit. They also were able to shed the Simeon contract, which got a little heavy for them. So it seems like a trade for both teams that were looking for certain things. But I'm so interested to find out exactly why Brendan Nimmo was okay leaving New York. And it wasn't that long ago he was saying that's the place he wanted to be and finish his career.
Marcus Simeon's one of these guys. When he retires, people will look and say, he made how much? He's going to end up making over 200 million in his career.
So the Blue Jay part of it was a big part of it, right? When he came there for a year and played second base and absolutely hammered fastballs. I mean, that was a big thing for him when he came over to Texas, and we kind of dug in and the adjustments that he was able to make. And when he first got over there, he struggled a little bit early on and got it together and kind of became that Marcus Simeon player that we knew. The beginning of his career was also kind of rocky too, right? So if you look at the beginning of his career and then you were to say, hey, this is how it's going to end, might be a little bit surprising. I think he's a great example of, do everything right, come to the ballpark every day, do your work, grind, be a good guy, be a good teammate. At the end of the day, if your talent is there, you're going to have a long, lengthy career. It was also at a time where the Texas Rangers, and I was there for my first 6 years, they were terrible. They were about 120 games under 500 my first 6 years. They brought Marcus Simeon in. They brought Corey Seager in. They were tired of it. They were tired of losing, and they spent big. And on those two guys alone, they spent $500 million. So it was an aggressive time where Marcus Simeon was coming off a good year. I think they gave him $175 million to come over to the Texas Rangers. It was the right place at the right time, but the right guy to do it on, even if he struggles toward the back end of his career, because he's such a professional at what he does.
CJ, I want you to speculate for a moment here. Let's say the Toronto
Do
Blue
it.
Jays, they re-sign Bichette, but basically don't make any other significant moves for whatever reason they can't and whatnot. Is this team capable of getting back to the World Series as is? Could they run it back with the same roster and get there again, or are big moves absolutely necessary in order to see themselves there once more?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if they only brought back Bo, I would be a little bit concerned about the bullpen. I'm okay with one position player, kind of the three we talked about, or any other big name they think fits with that flexibility they have. The question I would have would be more about the bullpen. It's so hard to repeat success. I mean, you saw Jeff Hoffman's year even throughout the year, right? The up and down that you get from relievers. Sometimes it's throughout the year, sometimes it's year to year, which makes for a really fun question for the Blue Jays is how big should they go? They have to probably address the bullpen. Jeff Hoffman has already talked about if Edwin Diaz is a reality, he has no problem sliding down to the eighth inning. I would love a move like that for them. He is the premier arm that is out there. So by itself, only bringing back Bo, I think they're in for a dogfight because the Yankees are going to be out there spending some money. Again, the Orioles are threatening at least to spend some money. We'll see what happens. Remember, they were good the last couple of years until last year. And so they could absolutely be in it. The Red Sox are going to be in it. So there's always that nervous factor, I think, as a fan, when you're in that deep of a division, if you're like, quote unquote, only running it back. And that probably has some validity to it. But if you can figure out a way to also add to the pen, even if it's some of those secondary guys and you just get deeper, and then probably would have to add at the deadline as well, you can get away with it. So if it's one premier free agent and it's a position player, I feel a little bit more comfortable at least seeing some improvements to the bullpen.
CJ, you're a pitcher. I've speculated that you don't want to upset the clubhouse dynamic with a position player, but in the bullpen, it's the land of the misfit toys. You can throw anyone there.
That's
You can
right.
you can throw Billy Koch out there. It doesn't matter. Am I
Yeah.
right on that?
Yeah, I mean, nobody loves the idea of any bad teammates, but sure, because you don't even get to sit with the team during the game. So if you have a bad guy, go ahead and throw him in the outfield, and that's probably the guy you see sitting down at the end of the bullpen by himself during games. Anyway, the bullpen is a team within the team, and it is kind of its own little culture as well, just like kind of the bench guys are. But you are in your own little separate group and not with the teams you're spending a lot of time together. It matters. I mean, listen, I've had every kind of teammate that you can imagine. It's not fun having necessarily bad teammates. There aren't too many, though, relievers that have been highly successful, especially back end guys that are bad teammates, because whether they like it or not, they kind of get that leader tag thrown on them. Like they have all the attention. If they don't do their job that night, that's what everybody's talking about. So it's kind of hard to be a bad guy. I know it exists in the game, and maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic on people than I probably should be. But at the end of the day, I'll take it too. I've said this even when I was playing back when rosters were 25. I'm not looking for 25 best friends. I'm looking for 24 other guys that all have the same goal in mind, that are willing to do whatever it takes. If you're kind of a jerk here and there, if you're a little arrogant, if you're not a great teammate, as long as you're doing your job every night, preparing, doing the work that's necessary, I'm fine with it.
You played at the same time as Billy Koch, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't remember disliking him. I do.
No,
he
was a wild card. He was a wild card.
Yeah, he was wild for sure. You know what's funny nowadays? It's like we see it all the time. As
Yeah.
soon as you say his name, there's one memory I have, and I watched him throw one of the nastiest pitches I've ever seen. Now I feel like it's a little bit more commonplace, but he threw a backdoor two-seam fastball to a righty that was 99 miles an hour on the corner, and I can still see it. And that was probably 24 years ago. Because he was one of those guys. Again, we have now triple-digit upper 90s guys all over the place, but it was him, it was Matt Anderson, it was Billy Wagner. There was only a handful that could do it, and he could locate it with movement. And I can still see that pitch clear as day. It's funny. And of course, the old goatee that he had. Too.
Yeah. Thanks, CJ.
Yep, see you guys.
Take care, CJ.
Okay, we cleared up all the rumors with an outside observer. I think we're no closer to knowing anything.
I'll be honest with you, Dan. I hadn't really considered until this weekend, maybe this morning, that they might not resign Bo Bichette. It's so hard for me to picture them losing him because he's such a core component, but this is a business at the end of the day. And, I really want him back, but as CJ mentioned, maybe they need more than just him back. And we just threw a lot of names out there. Kyle Schwarber is my favorite baseball player. He could hit 77 home runs down in Toronto, but he's not going to be the person coming into town. Tucker, Bichette, maybe Edwin Diaz. If they got all three of those guys, this team could run it back.
The sales pitch to the Jays. Again, I pointed this out. Do you want to be like Kawhi Leonard and just disappear, fall off the face of the earth, or do you want to be a rock star for your next contract? Because Bichette will actually have to decide, do I just want to play baseball and have a normal life, or do I want baseball to be the entire focus of my life, including my personal life, because I won't have one if I stay in Toronto?
That's a very, very good point, actually, Dan. I mean, there's a whole bunch of considerations here. We forget that at the end of the day, these people are human. But on a pure baseball level, too, you have to wonder with Bichette, someone like that going, well, where could I end up where I could produce offensive numbers at home as well as this? Because it's one of the best hitter parks in baseball. You have to think of all those things. You go out to Seattle, those numbers all change unless you have the biggest ass in the league. And it's just, there's so many variables here to think about. It's kind of hard to put yourself in their shoes and decide you can't decide what someone else's priority is. And I feel like he might still be young enough that the priority is winning and winning where he started. And I guess that's the hope we kind of pin our hats to, right?
I always bring it back to hockey. And if you talk to players who've played in a Canadian market, they say you've got to do it once and that's enough. And then you can go live your life and make great money. So that's a decision Bo Bichette has to make. Speaking of hockey, the Toronto Maple Leafs. I didn't ask ChatGPT, but when was the last time, how deep into the season, the Toronto Maple Leafs were last in the Eastern Conference?
When was the
right
last?
Now.
Yeah, do it right now. I'm going to pontificate for a moment while you do that, because I think this is like a twofold situation. It's not just that they're last in the Eastern Conference. It's that it's not like they were supposed to be a bad team heading into the season. Yes, we understand they lost Mitch Marner and there was a potential side effect of that, but they brought other guys in, and they did have one of the best goaltending tandems in the league coming into the season. So it's like a twofold shocker that they're in last, but that they're also in last where it's not like they missed the playoffs last year. They gave the Stanley Cup champions the best run of any team in the playoffs. So this is just confounding. But I mean, the injury bug's the injury bug. I'm not sure how much of a difference that's really made.
I'm going to ask it in real time. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Hey there. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Always happy to chat. How's everything going on your end?
Okay, I have a question. Toronto Maple Leafs are currently last in the Eastern Conference. It's mid-November 2025. When was the last time they were last in the Eastern Conference?
The suspense is killing me.
So right now, as of mid-November 2025, this is actually the first time since way back in the 1969-70 season that the Leafs have ended up sitting in last place in the Eastern Conference. It's definitely stirred up a lot of conversation about what's going on with the team and
The 69-70 season. Okay, this is a problem our long-suffering producer Tim has a problem with.
Yeah.
He will not
Tim
like that
Bud.
response. He'll say it's wrong. Tim, is it wrong?
Yeah. 2015-16, they finished with 69 points.
I was gonna say, like, what?
They're way off.
Like the Jackets were next at 76, and then the Sabres had 81.
So 2015?
2015-16
Okay,
season.
so 10 years ago, not 1969-70.
Just missed.
Yeah.
Just missed.
AI sucks.
But here's the thing. The bottom line is they're terrible right now. They are it's hard to watch. And the longer we keep talking about, it's not time to panic. It's not time to, well, when is it time to panic?
Oh, it is.
Because
Kyle, I'll give you
it's
that
so
response.
very much. Yeah.
I will tell you, I talked to Pierre McGuire this morning on McGuire Mondays, and he said this road trip the Leafs are on right now, this will define the season.
Yeah.
If they shit the bed on this road trip, they will be sellers.
And
He said, plain and simple, that's what he said.
And they end with Pittsburgh, Florida, Carolina, which could literally be a 1-2-3 punch of nails in the coffin because those teams, it's tough to go in their buildings. They're tough to play against. And you know, Florida wants to be a part of this downfall because they themselves have had a bit of trouble this season, but it's the Florida Panthers. I'm not doubting them until they lose.
What's the video game Street Fighter? Finish him?
Finish him. That's Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
See, I didn't get those games. I didn't have video game machines in that era.
That's horrific to hear. There is an
Sorry,
update
Tim,
for
I had
practice.
farming to do.
All right.
Wow.
There's practice notes from today. Nick Waugh practiced for the first time since he got hurt.
Okay.
Austin Matthews, Matthew Nyes also practiced. Jake McCabe did not practice.
Okay.
After
Everything's
getting
fine then.
After he got hit in the face
Yeah.
on Saturday.
Oh boy.
Okay. Well, we'll discuss what happens to the Leafs on Wednesday because it's a new story every single day with this team. The one good thing in Leafs Nation is when they struggle, there's a lot to talk about. When they're winning, it's hard to find things to talk about. So take that for what it's worth.
The pile-on effect is real, and it's not satisfying in any way whatsoever. I don't want them to be bad, but they are sleeping in the bed they've made, baby.
Yeah.
Fucking